My name is Bastien Sachet, and I'm the CEO of Earthworm Foundation. Earthworm is a not-for-profit organization whose mission is the regeneration of the soils and the forests of our planet. We've done this for over 20 years by working with companies that are committed to change and helping them answer 3 key questions. In this series, we will discover the women and men who are asking these questions. Join me to learn more about what drives them and their ideas to regenerate our world. Today I have the pleasure to welcome Philippe Chave.
Hi, Bastien.
Philippe is the CEO of the PX Group, co-CEO of the PX Group with his brother and family shareholder. The PX Group is a group of companies that are active in the metal industry, precious metals in particular. We'll talk about palladium, titanium, and gold. But because our interview is about people and understanding how leaders drive impact, we're going to dive a little bit more about you, Philippe. So, you are Swiss, you were born in Neuchâtel, but you've traveled and lived in many countries, Taiwan, China, Canada, and now you live in Malaysia about half of your time.
Born and bred in Switzerland. After my study, I felt appealed by traveling abroad, and finally I did a career mostly international. And now I'm spending my time between Switzerland and Asia. Those are 2 areas where I feel at home, and I find it fascinating to combine, strengths from both culture, Swiss precision, seriousness, with also a pragmatical mindset from Asia,
So tell me a bit about the PX Group today. It's a group of different companies which do different things.
So yeah, PX Group is a conglomerate of 10 companies, all active in metallurgy. So we have companies in the field of precious metal, so mostly gold, but not only palladium, platinum. We have companies in the field of non-precious metal, like titanium, stainless steel. And you have a tooling company, because you need tools as well to either transform the material in our place, or for our customer to further elaborate a component or to transform those metals into a finished part.
When we started to interact through Earthworm, we talked about gold, and that's how we started to work together. One thing that struck me is that on our side, we always talk about customers, suppliers, and farmers or miners, etc. And on your side, you always talk about partners.
Yeah, I think the relationship you have with a partner is different. You are more transparent. You play your cards on the table, and you must find a win-win solution. So it goes beyond just a simple seller-buyer relationship.
Is it because there is so much value that is transferred in the supply chain, or is it because there is so much dependency on one another that this notion of partnership is particularly evolved here in comparison to sometimes other commodities?
I think we live in an increasingly complex world, and if you're long-term oriented, then you just can't jump from one source to another. Trust and solutions are built together, and it takes time. There's no quick win around the corner, and I think long-term is probably the answer to your question.
Because gold is a commodity in the world, but the challenge in the gold industry, just to understand, is that you have the very big mines, which have to process a lot of rocks to get a tiny bit of gold, and then you've got the artisanal miner. So what's the share? How is it distributed in the industry?
So you can say averagely you may have more than 3,000 tons that are extracted in general from the ground.
3,000 tons?
Yeah, every year. Out of this, you have 20 to 25% that comes from the artisan sector.
Okay.
Most of it is illegal or not properly controlled. That represents 2,000 tons of mercury that is spilled in Mother Nature, in the environment, for the extraction. And the whole ecosystem involved about 100 million people. And of course, it has a very bad reputation. And in one way, we felt like we should address the issue.
And so, how did you go about it? How did you go about addressing that problem of artisanal miner, which is both a social problem and an environmental problem? Because we've got the mercury issue on the environmental side, and on the social side, the extraction is not optimal, the living conditions, the safety,
So it took me quite a while to understand, how the system works and what would make more sense. We've tried one way, another way, until we found, that the right way was to work with a processing plant, rather than working directly with small mines and trying to solve the mercury equation that is difficult to solve at a small scale.
So how does that work? So you've got the artisanal miner and then you've got a processing plant?
On the one hand, you have those artisan miners that are extracting the ore, that use mercury to get the gold out of the ore. And the other option, the one we took, we found a reliable partner that is called Dynacor in Peru, and they have a processing plant running by international standard. And rather than refining ore that they get from their own concession, they buy mineral ore from artisan miners. But they will only buy from those who are registered and those who are meeting certain conditions that we've set. But using mercury, they may lose 50% of the gold. The recovery rate is about 50% estimated. So it must be a win-win situation. Our partner must make money as well, and the miners must as well make the living. So that processing plant approach somehow allow the miners to focus on their core business, which is the extraction, and they let all the chemical, the processing part, to a company that has the proper setup for that.
I'm interested in the risk that was the risk part that was associated to doing this. Okay, you have a business here in Switzerland that runs well. You could buy gold from the banks and just market it. Why did you want to go into this complexity in a way, in places where gold mining is not the most transparent industry and the less risky of the world?
So yes, there is risk involved. It's a bit of a daring approach. Mm-hmm. But again, what we have bet on is, okay, if we do that with good intention and we are transparent, we are not promising the moon on everything that is going to be perfect, but we explain what we do, how we do, and we are transparent. And until now, that has worked.
It has worked. So, but there were moments maybe in that journey where you were sitting tight thinking, oh no, I made a mistake?
Of doubt, there were crises we had to deal with.
Do you remember one of those, for example?
Yeah, we had cases where we had gold seized by the customs, a part of an investigation, but we had to manage that crisis. And of course, in those days, you may have those people who say, I told you, Philippe, we shouldn't have done that.
What would be the biggest fear because the fear you had in diving into the artisanal mining, I guess the brands that you work with have the same fear.
Yeah, what I realized when we explain what we do is that people know very little about what is mining, what is the difference between artisan mining and large-scale mining as well. So I think the whole effort for us is, to educate the market, to explain why we should do and how we should do things, So
how do you do that in practice?
I'll say, why don't you come with me and visit those mines? You see what we do.
So somehow you've brought into an opaque market transparency.
Yeah.
And that's one of
There's
of
no
the
more
ways.
taboo. We talk openly, like we had this gold seized at the customs. I mean, decades ago, nobody would have mentioned this openly. And I think that approach pays back. And people are asking more for transparency than, perfection,
Yeah. And what are the countries where there's a lot of gold mining happening that could be eligible for this kind of model?
Well, the next target, would be Africa. There's a huge potential, but we're also exploring to identify other countries where that would be safe enough for us in South America, like Ecuador, for example.
A kilogram of gold is about $50,000, right?
Yeah, 50 plus.
$50,000. And so the extra cost linked to doing this is not huge, from what I understand.
Usually, most of the costs are the energy costs, Example, for large-scale mining, the average grade for mineral, for ore, is about 0.5 gram to 1 gram per ton.
1 gram per ton?
Yeah. So basically you need 1,000 ton to get 1 kilo. It's a lot of ore to crush. With artisan mining, the interesting part, and that's where I say it's more of a social part in this endeavor, is that you have much higher grades, otherwise it doesn't make sense. So in our case, we have average grades of 20 grams per ton, so you have a 20-fold, 20 factor. And that we say that we need to mine, to crush, process 20 times less material to obtain the same amount of gold.
If you had not done what you're doing today, which is leading the group, what would you have done?
You know, I'm also quite an intuitive person, and I follow my little voice. So that may sound a bit strange, and not so serious for a CEO to say that.
I don't know, I think it's quite serious actually.
But so far, you always brought me to the right place at the right time with the right people. So to answer your question, if there was no family business, which part of the world would I be? Only God knows, yeah.
On the side of your work, what do you do? What are the passions and the things that you do to just refresh your mind and do other things?
Well, I do a bit of sport because you need to maintain yourself, but I dedicate most of my time with the family. So the thing that the whole family loves is the 1 or 2 weeks skiing holiday in Switzerland, where we reconnect, you know, with our roots.
In Earthworms, we have a coat of arms where we have a few key values that are very dear to us. So we have truth, honesty, humility, compassion, and courage. What is the one of those 5 that you identify the most with?
So, yeah, it's difficult because they're all somehow equal, but the one that I would probably opt for will be courage, because courage is what makes you evolve, you know. And the whole idea is, you know, we should always stretch ourselves outside our comfort zone. And routine is not really my conception or idea, cup of tea. So yeah, that value would resonate most in me.
If you had a message for a young professional that is watching us, what would you tell him?
I think if you're a young professional, you have a fantastic power. I mean, it's your will and dedication. So if you have ideas, intuitions, or you feel, or passion, you know, just go to the bottom of it, you know, don't give up and you dedicate yourself.
A great message. Philippe, thank you very much. It's been great. And yeah, look forward to seeing you soon and tackling those challenges together.
Yeah, it was great, Bastien, sharing this time with you. I appreciate very much. Thank you.
Thank you.